How to use Moby Dick to explain the endocannabinoid system. It is a rainy Monday, so we're going to give this a shot. As we all know, the star of Moby Dick is a great white whale. And so if you're trying to use Moby Dick to explain the endocannabinoid system, only one thing could be your great white whale. It's anandamide, the first discovered endocannabinoid neurotransmitter. So how does this all work into our pelagic metaphor? I'm Lex Pelger. I do canna education for CV Sciences, the makers of Plus CBD, who has excellent CBD and THC products to enhance your endocannabinoid system. So the basis of our metaphor is to treat the brain like the ocean. And it has a ton of fish and things swimming around in there that we have no idea about. And this is true of the real ocean. We don't really understand a lot of what's happening with the ecosystems and the flow of the geochemistry and how the currents work. And the brain is a lot like that. We know a lot about the details of the brain, but we don't still really understand how the whole thing works together. And so in our metaphor, this ocean is filled with cities. Those are the individual neurons, and they each have their own city wall, and they have the nucleus control center, which is like a city hall. They have the powerhouse of the mitochondria. They have the ribosomes that produce proteins like the factories, and all of this is being orchestrated by these different neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters swim back and forth between the neurons. You have serotonin, which might be dolphins. You have acetylcholine, which might be like an electric eel. You have dopamine, which might be like a shark. And they send the messages back between the neurons, and neurons react to those and help the whole brain to work together to do something. And so how did we discover these endocannabinoids? Well, we knew that if you dumped cannabinoids from the plant into the ocean, it changed all kinds of things. So, what are whales on land? Whales on land are elephants. They're the exact same animals. A K2 species. One that's so big that it doesn't really have any predators, and it just does whatever it feels like. And it's mostly ruled by the grandmothers. So, elephants are just the whales of the land. And so THC and CBD are the African and Asian elephant. And you dump them in the brain and they change things. And so we had a clue that these cannabinoids from the plant were doing something with a system inside of us. And so we made a radioactive elephant and dropped it down in the brain. And what did we find but a place for it to hang out? You might call it a bar, an elephant bar, a receptor just for elephants in the walls of these neurons. And not just any neuron. Pretty much every neuron in the brain had these. And so it turns out that elephant bars are extremely popular. And if there are elephant bars, that means that there must be something in the brain to be going to those bars, because the brain wouldn't be producing these bars just for them to sit empty, except when an elephant happened to be introduced from the outside, from the land. So there must be something living in these bars, in these receptors. And so that's how they started to hunt, to look for the endocannabinoids. And the first one they found was anandamide. And so it turns out that this great white whale goes to the CB1 receptor bars, and there it gives messages to all of these messenger fish that pass the message into the cell saying, do this, don't do that. Homeostasis, balance is the general message of the endocannabinoid system. And so it turns out that the CB1 receptor bars are where the elephants and the whales both hang out and cause different changes to the neurons and to the entire ocean. Then, a little bit later, we found the CB2 receptors. And the CB2 receptors can be seen as the gay bars. And they are even more widespread. They're not only in the brain, they're also in the body. And so the CB2 receptors are where the immune system seems to keep things in balance as well. And so if you choose to see the entire human brain like an ocean, some of the most important discoveries were quite recent, and it was this whole species of endocannabinoid whales. So this is probably long enough for now, but if you want me to expand more upon this metaphor, I do have 135 chapters of this all lined up, and some of them are already written, so let me know.